have surgery? Will he not? That answer is still uncertain. We'll get to that in just a minute. This is Fantasy Hoops. We are so glad to have you, Lauren Shehadi, Jamey Eisenberg. Jamey, Elton Brand is out for quite a long time. No time to waste. Who do we put in our lineup in lieu of him?
Yeah, Lauren, at least right now it's going to be a month, so we'll see how long that's going to linger, but it could be longer, especially if he decides to have surgery. But, you know, it's tough for fantasy owners right now because you're missing, obviously, a quality fantasy forward. So you're looking at how the Philadelphia 76ers are going to try and replace this. Now, listen, Brand has been somewhat of a bust up to this point, but I think this time now will allow the Sixers to sort of adjust. We know they got rid of Maurice Cheeks. So you're looking at some of the guys now that have an opportunity to fill the scoring void. I think the guys that will get the minutes will be Maurice Spates and will also be Thaddeus Young. But you're looking at Andre Iguodala, Andre Miller, Lou Williams. These guys are going to have to pick up their production. Iguodala's had a disappointing season as well, trying to adjust to playing with Elton Brand. I think now he goes back to where he was last year. Andre Miller, I think, goes back to becoming a top 10 point guard. And then you see Lou Williams. His scoring has been up, so we'll see how sort of he does. But he's still right now being useful as a number 4 fantasy guard at this point.
Williams has been lighting it up from beyond the arc. Perhaps it will continue. Jamey, with the holidays coming up, that means less games on the schedule. What does that mean for fantasy owners?
Well, it means that you're going to see a little bit less production. You know, when you're talking about leagues where you're looking at total scores throughout the course of the week, when you look at Phoenix, 1 game. Some of these other teams, only 2 games. You know, this is something, obviously, to keep an eye on when you're setting your lineup this week because, you know, unfortunately for the Phoenix Suns, which typically has some of the best fantasy options, you know, Steve Nash, Shaquille O'Neal, Amari Stoudemire, and now Jason Richardson, you'll see some of these guys on our starts and sits because they only have 1 game this week.
Okay, well, we are going to try to answer all your questions in this segment, but there are no question marks surrounding Andrew Bynum. Get him in your lineup. Get him starting if he's not already there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you're talking about 4 games this week. You know, one of the few beneficiaries of playing a full slate of games. And I think you look at Bynum the way he's played, you know, averaging 12 points, 9 rebounds in his past 5 games, starting to live up to the potential of being a number 1 fantasy center. He's been sort of a number 2 guy, but now I think you can start to use him as a number 1 option. If you're only playing 1 center and 1 in your league, if that's your scoring format, then I think you can use Bynum as that number 1 option because when he plays like this, he's typically going to put up good numbers. And, you know, we saw Paul Gasol miss a game last week. You know, if that continues, obviously Bynum's value is going to go up even more.
Okay, and Marcus Camby's value, will it go up? With Chris Kaman out, he's obviously reaping those benefits. Will he when Kaman returns?
Yeah, Camby's really a sit at this point simply because of the games this week. Only 2 games for the Clippers, one of those handful of teams with only 2 games. So that's the reason. But he's just been fantastic. 10 double-doubles in his past 13 games. He's coming off a game against Chicago last week where he had 19 points, 27 rebounds, 4 blocks. If he plays like that, you're not going to bench him when he has 2 games. But we expect Kaman to come back at some point. As you said, Zach Randolph's still taking some time away from him. So I think that's something to keep an eye on before you set your lineup for the next scoring period. But as of now, with just 2 games, I'd be a little bit cautious with a guy like Camby.
Okay, are you cautious with Shawn Marion? When you look at the Miami Heat and Shawn Marion, he's kind of taken a little bit of hit in production. It's going to come back up, Jamey?
Yeah, it's been a huge hit. You know, I think you're sugarcoating a little bit there.
Yeah.
He's been struggling this year, you know, going from an 18-point-per-game scorer down to about 13 points per game. And now there's a trade rumor floating around out there that Shawn Marion could be going to Cleveland for Anderson Varejao and Wally Szczerbiak. I don't expect that trade to happen because Cleveland's not going to give up on a big man like Varejao. But they could use a guy like Marion who's a little bit more versatile in their offense. But I think you look at Marion, you know, struggling a little bit, as you mentioned, you know, 12 points, 8 rebounds in his last 5 games, sort of trying to find his way in playing, you know, a hybrid power forward, small forward role with Udonis Haslem, Michael Beasley there. We know Dwayne Wade dominates the scoring. So I think you look at Shawn Marion coming in this week is a good start because of the 4 games that he's going to play. And I think that's a good allotment for him to get in there and help you out a little bit. Excuse me, I think he's playing only 3 games this week. So I think you look at 3 games for Marion, still good option for him this week because he has 1 more than most guys.
Sure. What about Charlie Villanueva? Do you start him? Do you sit him or no?
I sit him. You know, another guy similar to Marcus Camby who's playing well, but again, we're talking 2 games this week. That's typically not going to give you enough production unless you're in an average league. But you look at Villanueva, you know, a guy who's been, you know, sort of trying to find his way a little bit in this Milwaukee offense, playing much better as of late, averaging 18 points, 8.8 rebounds in his last 5 games. Again, type of production you don't typically want to put on your bench. But when you're looking at the 2 games that they have to play in the next scoring period, that's going to sort of dictate how he plays, and I'd probably just sit him unless you don't have a better option on your bench.
Okay, you guys were right on about Rodney Stuckey, Jamey. Kind of a fantasy sleeper, and that's exactly what he's been doing, averaging 15.5 points a game. It's pretty good.
Yeah, not only that, you know, the biggest thing that helped Rodney Stuckey was the trade of Chauncey Billups to Denver, getting Allen Iverson. You know, everybody thought that Iverson would be the guy that's going to step up and be the point guard there. Well, you know what? They kept Iverson as a natural 2-guard spot. They moved Richard Hamilton to the small forward spot, and Rodney Stuckey's come in 3 double-doubles in his past 5 games, 13.6 points, 9 assists over that span, just really getting it done, helping fantasy owners as a solid number 3 fantasy guard. And now he comes into this week. He has 3 games coming up in this scoring period. He's going to be even better, and I think he continues to just prove that he's going to be a very good point guard in the next few years, and that's why they were allowed to trade Chauncey Billups to Denver.
Talk to me about Jason Richardson, Jamey. Is he comfortable in Phoenix?
Well, not yet. I think that's going to take some time.
It's
going to take a little bit while for him to adjust and get used to the whole formula there.
So do you start him?
Well, the reason we're sitting him this week goes back to the whole schedule. One game this week for the Phoenix Suns. When you're talking about a guy still getting adjusted to a new system, one game, probably a little bit of a risk, especially when you're talking about leagues where you're getting total points. And really, I know he had a 7-rebound game in his second game in Phoenix, but he's not really a rebounder. He's not going to get a lot of assists with Steve Nash, so he's really just scoring. And right now, he topped out at 21 points in his first game with Phoenix, 16 points in his next game. He'll get you around 17 to 18 points per game. I just don't know if that's enough with only one game to put him in your starting lineup this week. I would probably reserve Jason Richardson. Again, a lot of the Suns are going to struggle because only one game. And remember, that game is against the Spurs, which is a very good defensive team.
A very tough team. Okay, if you guys have your eyes on the prize of Fantasy Championship, keep it locked right here on CBSSports.com for all your sports needs. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Lauren Shehadi. Good luck, guys.